Welcome to another episode of Funniest Funny Live. Tonight's guest, Spunky Robinson, Hannah Rainey, and your host, Amaru.
That's what you get when you hire your kids. And welcome to Funniest Funny Live. Today in the hot seat we have
Hannah Rainey.
Hannah Rainey, another artist. So let's get into this, Hannah. What type of art do you do?
So I do abstract expressionism and surrealism.
Can you kind of break that down, what that is?
So abstract expressionism, if you're familiar with Jackson Pollock, so it's lines, lots of lines, bold colors. So that's abstract expressionism. So surrealism is art that is based around dreams or thoughts or things that are just like outside of this reality or outside of our regular perspective.
No, you got to be like, on some shit when you.
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No. So I'm just a very visual person. So it can be based off of my experiences. When I was younger, I had a lot of nightmares. So I would just draw out what I was thinking. So if I'm anxious, I tend to draw eyes a lot. So it could be, usually you have anxiety from people watching you or something like that. That's actually called scopophobia. I have a piece based on that.
Oh.
So yeah.
Oh, maybe you can help me with something because I draw too.
Okay.
So the eye thing, I used to not draw the eyes in all my characters. What is that about?
Not draw the eyes?
Yeah, I used to leave the eyes out.
What are you afraid of?
I don't know
what are you afraid of looking at?
or not even complete the face sometimes.
That's just your style. Like for instance, I don't really put color in a lot of, or I used to not put a lot of color in mine. I only work with like 2 or 3 colors. Or I used to just do 1 or 2 layers. But if that's your style, then that's you.
Well, it's since developed into, full colors or whatever. But in the beginning, it was, I just didn't complete the faces all the time. I don't know what that was about.
You can always complete them whenever you want to.
Yeah, true.
There's pieces that I've started, maybe 10 years ago, and then I finished them 10 years later.
So when you do it now, is it all digital or is any of it freehand or?
Oh no, all my stuff is freehand. So I don't sketch it out beforehand because when I look at the piece, if it's on canvas or if it's on paper, I see it before I draw it.
Okay.
So I can kind of see it before I do it, and then I'll just go along with that.
So when you do the digital thing, is that a scanning process? How does that work out?
So I use an app called Procreate.
Okay.
And so it's just like having a pen and paper, and you take a stylus and you just draw. They have different things that you can use on there where you can distort your drawings. You can make it swirly. You can add a lot of different effects to it, which is really great. Because then that gets into like NFTs and different things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, the digital age has really advanced art. So.
I still like, I'm old school, like the pencil to the paper, but I do have the stylus and everything, and I'm just ignorant to the programs to use in regards to.
Your OG.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
No. But is there a way where, like, you could draw it freehand and then digitally upload it and manipulate it?
Absolutely.
There too?
Yeah, if you have an iPhone and let's say you take a picture of, like you draw something and you take a picture, you can actually go in your notes and you can scan it and it will take just of that image. And then you can also go to like Staples or you can go to somewhere else and they can also take professional pictures or professional photographer can take pictures.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different options out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what spawned this creativity?
Oh man, like I've always been creative, always, like always creating something, writing something, whether it was my homework. I used to get in trouble all the time for drawing on my homework, and the like TCAP test and the SATs, is that what it is?
What is it again?
The like SATs.
SATs,
yes.
Yeah.
I used to draw on those too, and I used to get in trouble for it. They used to call my parents, and I wasn't really allowed to pursue that as a career. I fell into the arts. in a lot of different ways, and I just kept. So, like for instance, I went to a vocational high school. That was my only option because I was gonna drop out if I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, because regular school was it was really hard for me to like keep up. So
What was the vocational school called?
it wasn't in Michigan, it was in
Oh, okay.
Tennessee. But Sequoia High School, shout out Sequoia High School,
right,
y'all
right.
the best.
I
Love
was,
y'all.
I was supposed to go to one called, I don't want to say it was in Lawrence, Michigan, and it was for art. It was when computers were first being introduced, that a way of drawing, into drawing or whatever. But I went to the Army instead. But you said something about not being able to go into the art world. I kind of relate to that. What was the reason?
So I kind of had a path that was chosen for me. Like, and, like my parents were very religious, so they kind of chose me to go down this one path. And I was very highly discouraged not to go to college or get any education outside of high school. So I didn't, and I just started working as like a server or part-time, and then I kind of lived that life that they wanted me to live. It wasn't until I was about 25 that I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I started trying to pursue art full time and just fully expressing myself, whether it was through poetry or painting or digital art. And even though I was in that, I still asked a lot of questions to artists in my community. So my vocation that I went to was welding, and I was supposed to use welding for my church, basically. I was supposed to use it for that. But I ended up working for a sculptor. And from there, I worked with another sculptor. And from there, I worked with another sculptor. And then I worked with different artists in the community. And then, they had different meetups that they would do. And then I worked with different poets in the community. And I moved up here to Lansing and did the same thing. So, yeah.
She being modest, she don't want to say who the religious culprits are. I grew up in the same, and what I would tell you is same religion as Michael Jackson used to be in.
Yeah.
But when I met you, at certain points when you don't meet someone else who's been through the same experience, you begin to think you made it up.
Absolutely.
And then so when I met you and you started talking about it, I was like, oh, me too. Because I wanted to be a comic book artist.
Yeah.
And it was always discouraged. And I couldn't understand. I'm looking at Michael Jackson. I'm like, well, their whole family is famous. Well, I got to do this for the Lord.
Yeah.
And that, it was really discouraged. And like sports, if it didn't happen during school hours, we couldn't do it. So a lot of things were stifled and couldn't be realized until I got out of the situation. So just like yourself, but you didn't get out until you was an adult.
Yeah, 25.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a lot of, I don't want to say sacrifices, but there was a lot of hard choices that had to be made in order to pursue art.
I bet.
Yeah, because, art is very expressive. It's very much following your heart, which is something else that was very much not supposed to be doing, is following your heart.
Sorry, we got somebody.
Are you okay over there?
You all right?
Good? She's like, I'm good. I shouldn't be laughing, I'm
Let's
sorry.
put some mattresses down there,
That ladder's got her.
So when I got out of the situation, I was young. I was probably the 7th or 8th grade, and I went to foster homes, and so it was like a whole new world. Oh, and I was able to do the things that I would. But to be an adult and not, I bet the training and programming was strong within you.
Yes, it was.
So you probably felt a lot of guilt.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of fear, a lot of obligation, a lot of guilt over all of that. And, even just being able to function was very hard because, you're not allowed to make friends outside of that group.
Right.
You're not allowed to, you can make friends, but it's heavily discouraged too.
Right.
And so
What helped you through it?
Good question. Literally just pursuing my passion, just doing what I wanted.
Organizations or?
Yeah, there was a few that the first thing that I did when I wanted to leave is because you don't just get up and go.
Right.
You don't get that choice. What I did is I called hotlines. So I, this might be a trigger warning. Like I called suicide hotline, just to talk to them, just to talk to someone. I also called Recovering from Religion. They really, really help. They're a free organization. You can call them anytime. They're not biased. And they explained like a lot of different beliefs and thoughts that I was having, and that helped a lot with that process. And I'm so happy that they were there. And they're all volunteer based too, so nobody's paid for anything that they do. So that helped a lot, and just having a really good community of people and creatives, especially creatives. So like poets, writers, ghostwriters, artists, painters, photographers, anybody. That became my community of because I lost the other one.
Right,
so.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. You feel it, you know.
Is there any particular organization or community that you gravitate towards more than others? Basically, is there a community that you want to give a shout out to?
Not really. Like I think that everybody had an equal share in just helping me become who I am today.
Okay.
Like I said, there was Recovering from Religion. That was probably the biggest one that helped me get through what I got through.
So she was supposed to bring samples of her work. We're going to put it in post so that you can see it. Where would people be able to see?
So you can find most of my most updated stuff is going to be on Instagram under Rainy Dark FIF. So that's where you can find most of my stuff, most updated. You can see the behind the scenes process of how I do things, because a lot of times I'll give little snippets of how I came up with this, and then you'll see reels of time lapses of me doing things, and then I tend to answer questions too. Music also has a huge influence on my work as well.
Who you listen to?
I listen to everything.
Everything.
I listen to everything.
So the music thing is probably like liberating as well, because you
yeah.
were limited in what you could listen to. You couldn't listen to that worldly music.
Couldn't watch movies, TV.
Right.
So like the first thing I did when I got out is I couldn't watch any rated R movies,
Right.
anything like that. Like PG-13 was
PG-13.
Like my favorite movie is Inception, because it's just perspective. So,
I fell asleep on that movie 3 times. I can't.
You gotta watch the whole thing. It's a
can't.
good movie.
I was at the theater and I couldn't.
It's a good movie.
Inception, and that one Denzel's son was in. What's that one called? Tenet.
I never saw that one.
I tried. I tried.
Anything that's like mind bending, I love watching it. It's because it's like, wow, they come to this conclusion, because perspective, that's what shifts. That's what creates change.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So 5 years from now.
5 years from now.
Where you at 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I want to have my own show. I have a book that I want to release.
Okay.
I have another book I'm writing.
Tell us about that.
So I have a poetry book. It has 50 poems. It's basically, so I have my poetry book, and it's everything before I left.
Okay.
And then I have a project it's a lifelong project that I'm doing of all the time that it took me from being inside to leaving and after the effects of leaving. So I have about 100 pieces that I'm going to do. So that's going to be poetry, photography. It's also going to be paintings. And I'd like to have a show on that eventually. And I'm going to break it up in segments so it's not too overwhelming. But some of the pieces are like really intense. So, and then I also have friends that want to be a part of the project because they were also in it. And so
I want to be a part of it too.
Yeah, you can be a part of it too. Absolutely, we'll talk.
Because I said this to you before the show. You don't understand that when other people who can relate to what we're talking about see this, you're going to give them strength and courage.
Yeah.
Because I'm 48 years old, and this is the first time I've spoken with somebody who can relate to what I'm talking about, or who was willing to talk about it or admit to it.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, because
Right.
you get a lot of shame over it, and that's the biggest thing to work through.
Yeah.
It's the conditioning of it. I was in it for 25 years. And
I was
said-
always rebellious. So
I said, I'm retired.
yeah, right. I was always rebellious. They kept whispering about me. They were like,
Yeah.
you might want to do something with him.
Yeah, I couldn't rebel. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I was too scared to.
Do you think it had anything to do because you were female?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Females do not have a choice there. Not a lot of choice there.
Well, I give you a shout out for having the strength to finally, say this is enough and I want to live my life.
Well, thank
That's
you.
dope. You're a dope individual.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.